Hey, coming up this week on Cocktails, Code, and Conversation, special guest Davin Jackson swings by the pod to talk about what it's really like being a person of color in the cybersecurity space. We talk a little bit about burnout and some of the things you can do to help prevent it, and then we talk about the hacker mindset. All that and more coming up on this episode. And of course, this episode and this podcast is brought to you by the On the Corner Podcast Network. Check us out at onthecorner.us for all the latest podcasts coming your way. All right, without further ado, let's get to it. All right, everybody, and we are back with another episode of Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. And of course, as always, y'all know I like to say it, every single guest on this podcast is special. And today, this gentleman definitely lives up to that special guest, Mr. Davin Jackson.
How's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So for those that don't know, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let them know who you are, what you're all about.
So I'm Davin Jackson. I run Alpha Cybersecurity.tech, which is my blog site and my YouTube channel. I'm a penetration tester. I've worked in cybersecurity now for about 7 years, about 15 years overall in total in tech. I'm a father, husband, brother, son, mentor,
Yeah,
uncle.
man.
You know, I'm trying to wear all the hats right now. And
Right.
Right, like I said, right now I'm with you today and I'm just happy to be here.
All right, man. And I want to tell this story real quick. Number one, thank you for taking the time and coming on. And, this kind of story of how we kind of linked up is kind of interesting because we never met. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like this is, this is our first time kind of really interacting. But, and I love talking about this. It goes to the community of like in the cybersecurity space, in the tech space, and then specifically, I get really real, the Black community within this space, right?
Talk about it.
I've been in, identity and access management, which is a subniche of cybersecurity for almost 20 years now. And one of the things that's been exciting for me, like these last couple of years, is to see more and more people of color like coming into this, right? For the longest time, I looked around, I was like, wait, y'all out here? Like, where y'all been? Like, I've been looking for y'all. And so, what kind of led to this interaction was really for me, I think what led me to be able to even see like some of your tweets was when Marcus Carey put out his book, The Tribe of Hackers, right? I found a lot of people in there that I started to follow and connect with on Twitter. And, so for that, I started to kind of get more into that community. And so that led me to seeing one of your tweets where you had, kind of talked about, like burnout and what you were going through. And, I quickly just kind of gravitated towards that because I went through that earlier this year, right? Like the same thing at the beginning of the year. And I was to the point where, like me, I walked away and walked away from, what most people would say was a ridiculous amount of money. But I was like, I had to tell people, I was like, man, at the end of the day, I can't take none of that with me, right? And in my sanity and just my peace of mind is worth so much more than that. And it's one of the things that kind of like a dark side and probably of most areas at work, but I think specifically in cybersecurity, that we don't really talk a lot because cybersecurity, because of how it is, right? It's fast paced and everybody says, well, everything's fast paced, but cybersecurity is super fast paced because you're in this constant back and forth between, as soon as you find out like what are things that you can mitigate, like something else comes up and it's just back and forth. So there's all this going into it. And, you just wake up one day and like, it's like that years have gone by, like you work in 70, 80 and you like, I don't know what in the world is going on. So when I saw that, man, I felt compelled, to just reach out and wanted to, see if you'd be down to come on this pod jar today and just and talk about it. And, with that, I want to kind of jump into some of those issues and really talk about it. Because like I said, I don't think a lot of people do. So when you look back on it now, right, what do you think were some of the factors that kind of led to your burnout?
So, well, first of all, shout out to Marcus. Like I said, anybody who has followed me for a while knows how much the high regard I hold for that man.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I'm not sure which time of my burnout you were talking about. I've burned out in the last few years. I don't know how many times, but he was, when I was going through it, really the last time, maybe about a month or two ago, he was one of the first people that reached out to me and was like, yo,
Right.
call me. So shout out to him. And like I said, it's probably because of him that I'm even right now even having this conversation, right? But a lot of the things that you just said played a major factor. I mean, just the fast pace of it all.
Mm.
And again, if I'm going to be all the way funky, I think it also is the being a black person in this field
Yeah.
plays a big role in it as well. I didn't go to college personally, so having to fight that uphill battle
Right.
of, doing that. And then I just said, I was speaking to someone else the other day. I said, you're already fighting to validate yourself because of those reasons, because you came up, some people came up, how we came up,
Right.
not having a college degree. So you're already fighting with yourself to make sure you deserve to be there. But then you also have to then turn around and almost like validate your existence to other people, them tech bros or whatever. Between that, the fast pace, the sacrifice of time I've taken away from, my wife and my kids to become who I am in this field. And then it was already a toll. And then now you add COVID, right? Now you have COVID. We're working from home. Things aren't normal for a lot of people.
Right.
I worked remotely for years, so it really didn't bother me switching back. But I think I was also in between changing into a new company and getting into a new role and trying to find my footing there, and to have to fight those politics and inside stuff going on there. And then you have then you have just what's going on in the world with the racial stuff.
Yeah.
It just became too much. And the crazy part is, or I think the time when I really said I was really going to step away, that last time a couple months ago, we had just did the Share the Mic in Cyber event, which was supposed to amplify voices of Black and brown men and women in this field. And I was grateful for it, but I just couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
I fulfilled my obligations because, I'm a man of my word, but it was, and it was a great thing to see. But at the same time, it was almost like, is it too late? So, I had to take a step back. And the crazy thing is, I took like 2 weeks off. I didn't look at a computer unless it was like to check my email. Just kind of reconnected with my family and friends, and then kind of sat back and reevaluated. And it hit me that, what, I actually love cybersecurity. I just don't like the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
That's the part that killed me. So it was like, when I came back, I was like, listen, I always wanted to, my goal was always to kind of open the door and, leave it open for the next batch of people. I'm like you. I remember when I first got into it, I was the only Black guy at the school district that I worked at. And I remember walking into the copy room, and there was another Black person there. And I think we both sat there and paused. and if we could have touched each other to make sure the other one was seeing what we were seeing. And I remember when I went home to my wife, and I was like, man, it was like a unicorn seeing another unicorn. You know what I'm saying? But from then it was like, man, and this was before I really got into cyber. I was just doing IT, and it was just like, I gotta bring some people with me, man, because I'm not, I don't know. Like I said, we never met personally, but coming up, how I came up, this was always something that it seemed like it was unattainable for us.
Right.
It was always like, only the kids who have the money to afford these type of to afford computers, or you had to be smart enough to go to college, and and honestly at that time it was usually the white, Indian, or Asian kids.
Yeah.
That always had these opportunities. So now when I got here, and I'm like, well, if I could do it,
right.
I'm far from the smartest, but if I can do it, then I damn sure can bring some people along and help change their lives too. So
tell me a little bit about that, right? When you were in IT, right, and just kind of on the outskirts, and you started to make the jump over to cyber, what was like what were some of the things that you started doing where they're like, what steps kind of, right? And I know you probably get asked this a lot and we were talking about a lot, but I think it's real. I think it's really important to get that out there because I want people to understand, especially people of color, to your point that you just made, right? For a lot of us coming up, these opportunities just don't seem to exist because we don't see a whole lot of it, right? So a lot of people don't know how to even get there. So tell me about like just some of the steps you took when you were like, okay, look, I think this is interesting and I kind of want to get over in this lane.
So the funny thing is, and my earliest memory of wanting to do something in cyber was when I first started to hear whispers about it when I was in the Air Force. So while I was in the Air Force, I wanted to do something in tech because I was always good with tinkering and stuff. Like my grandmother used to let me take things apart and put them back together. As long as it was working, and sometimes it was to her benefit because sometimes I would fix the problem, but it was always like, you can do whatever you want. But if I go to turn it on and it don't work, and my grandmother was an old school Jamaican woman, there was no, so it was like, all right. And then she had to go, then she'd go tell my father, and that was just like, nah, all right. Yeah. So when I went into the military, I asked them about it, and they were like, nah, we don't really have anything, but we have aircraft maintenance. I'm like, I don't want to be an aircraft mechanic. They're like, we'll give you $5,000. 18 years old, kid from Bridgeport. $5,000, cool, let's do it.
Right.
And then when I got there and I started, because I ended up working on the stealth, so I had clearance. So now I'm starting to run into people who are like, man, we're doing some cool stuff over here with computers. And I'm like, man, that's what I was looking at, right? So anyway, so I got out and I was kind of lost for a little while because, there's no fighter jets in the civilian world. So it was like, all right, whatever. But like I said, my wife, I give all the credit in the world because her and my daughter, because my daughter was just born and my wife was like, yo, you gotta do something. Like, I was trying to be an electrician. I was trying to do electrical. I was an electrician. I fell off a ladder on the job site and was like, yo, that's not for me. Like once I got up and I was like, oh, I can walk.
He was like, I'm good.
I walked to the car. Off the job site and it was done. So yes, like I said, so when I got into tech, the very first, I think it was the A+ certification. I walked in and I saw a sign for CEH. And I was like, ethical hacking? What is that? Right? All right, whatever. Move on. A couple of years later, now I start hearing about cybersecurity, and I'm like, all right, I heard about it. But I was like, that ain't for me. That ain't right. For me. And then when I decided that I was going to make the jump, because I didn't go to college, I was like, well, let me make sure I know everything there is to know on the IT side and basically top out there. So I worked and did my IT stuff till I got to about sysadmin. So this way I figured if I know how to build it, I'll understand what I'm going to do when I go to break it.
I like that. But
a lot of it, like I said, I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the money. So I took an old, the old street mentality of taking it and flipping it and making it work for you. So I had $200 and I went to my boss and I asked them if they would do any type of reimbursement. So he said, yeah, sure. If you pass, and just kind of said it in passing. I said, all right, bet. So I took the $200. By this time, I think I had my A+ Network Plus and Security Plus. So I said, all right, bet. I took the $200 and I bought the Microsoft stuff. And I took it and I passed it. I walked up to him with my certification. I passed. He reimbursed me. I took that $200 and moved it again. In the meantime, I'm saving up the money. I'm saving up money on the side just in case he ever changes his mind and realizes that, oh, he's dead serious.
Right.
They let me go for about 6-7 times. And by the time they really started to push back, I had already saved up enough money to do something else. And then, like I said, I took the money, flipped it. Then I took the money that I saved, put it together, drove down to Virginia, and Keytron Evans was teaching a class on penetration testing. And Keytron Evans is probably at that point the first Black person I saw in pen testing.
Right.
So now I was double pumped because it was like, all right, cool. I'm not alone in this field.
Yeah.
There's someone who looks like me and he's actually teaching how to do it. So that's basically the long story short, that's pretty much what I did. I used certain things that people take for granted to your advantage, man. Like I said,
Right.
Most companies now will offer some type of tuition reimbursement.
Yep.
Or pay for certifications. So if they have a reimbursement, work your way up. It doesn't always have to be, don't go jumping, don't try to jump out the window and go for like an $8,000 SANS course from day one. And not to show my age, but at that time there weren't a lot of resources on YouTube and
Right.
Twitter and Udemy and stuff. Now you can take, I'm a big advocate on Udemy. I'm an affiliate to the point. So now I put out articles like, listen, go get these.
Yeah.
Because now you can wait for a sale, go on Udemy, spend $100. And by the time you're done, you're ready to take 6-7 certifications.
Yeah.
So I'm a big advocate for getting it for cheap.
Yeah, look, we about to say that loud for the people in the back. Like, Udemy is the cheat code right now. Like, yeah. If you're watching this, you listen to this, and you're like, man, that's awesome. Where can I go to find these courses, man? Like, I tell people Udemy and just look for the sales, right? Go find what you want, and like put in the little cart or whatever, and just watch it. Like, they run sales so many times, and to your point, you can get a nice little come up, $100, and you got everything you need. And that $100 is going to come back to you, easily 10 times fold, because it's going to give you what you need to go get those certifications and use that to get in the door. One of the things that I'll say this, and this is my thoughts on it, and I'd like to get yours on it as well. Like, when it comes to certifications, I tell a lot of people when I talk to them, like, oh, what certifications did I get? I was like, look, pick the ones for what you're interested in. But remember, the certification is to build your skill set. Right. And is really to, help you get past the filter on an application, because they're going to look for those check boxes. Right. So now you get past the filter and you get the skill set, but don't rely on that. Don't just think, oh, I got this cert, so I'm good. Continue to push and develop that skill set. But it's just that it's that step in the front door to get you past the filters and know that you meet the little check boxes. Mm-hmm. But now you got to show what you're able to do with that skill set. Right. That is what's going to not only keep you there, but then continue to allow you to progress. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I think sometimes people get a little too like certification happy.
So I tell the people that I mentor that the certifications aren't for you, it's for them. The certifications get you to interview, but your skills is what's going to get you paid.
Right.
Because you can have 20, 30 certifications and then still wonder why you're making 40 grand a year. I don't care what the market value says. I mean, I argue with people, well, not argue, but I have conversations with people all the time when they're like, well, I have my CISSP and I have this certification, I have that, and I'm only making 60 grand a year. I'm like, well, first of all, how long have you been doing this? Oh, I'm 5 years in. Then that's ridiculous.
Right.
The CISSP alone requires you to have 5 years of work experience before you can even get the full certification. So, don't be paper certified, right? And it goes back to my point of when I wanted to get into cybersecurity, I made sure I worked my way up on the IT side, because you got to know your stuff. So I typically tell people, if you're really starting from the bottom, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. If you take those and understand the concepts, that'll lay the groundwork for anything you want to do.
Absolutely.
After you get those three. If you want to branch off into cyber, if you want to continue in networking, whatever, but those three are core. Now, once you start, let's say if you want to go to the pen testing path, now you look at your CEH or your Pen Test Plus certifications, networking, your CCNA or whatever they have for networking. But what I tell people is once you get around, after you get your Pen Test Plus or CEH, don't stop.
Right.
Because now you have gotten, and honestly, the Pen Test Plus is a little bit more. I haven't seen the CEH in a couple of years, but from what I did see the last time, the Pen Test Plus was actually a little bit more technical than the CEH. But once you get those, you don't need to spend money anymore for a little while.
Right.
Because why? Now it's time to get that hands-on experience.
Right. Exactly.
And you can get hands-on experience for nothing more than the cost of whatever computer, or how much a hard drive costs for your computer, and what you spend every month on internet. Because you can go on, you can download VMs, and go on VulnHub. You can go on Hack the Box. You can go on Pentester Lab or Pentest Lab. You can go on Try Hack Me's a new one that's up and coming. Practical Pen Test. There's all these different sites.
Man, it's crazy.
And they're all, and everything that I just listed right here is free. It's free. Like you can, I mean, yes, there's a paid version of Hack the Box or Try Hack Me that gives you access to more rooms or older machines to practice towards something. But all of that is free. Cybrary, go on Cybrary. Cybrary got free courses. Take your notes, get your hands-on experience, build your lab out, and just hack away.
Yep.
Right? Get a VM, get a couple VMs at a time. Shoot, when I was coming up, I had a separate network internal. I put a computer, I had a computer, and I put a bunch of VMs on it, and I just let it run. And now I could practice anywhere in the house because it was in this internal network.
Yeah.
All I would do is just fire up a Nmap scan and see what IPs were open. And, this way I made it convenient. And you just keep practicing, because what's going to happen is you're going to start having these people with those certifications. You're going to start having people, you don't even have to look. Put out your resume on a LinkedIn or an Indeed or something. They're going to call you.
Right.
And like I said, that's going to get you the interview. And then when you get in the interview, you're going to have people like me or like other folk who are going to see it and then say, okay, great, you have your CEH, but what good is that?
Right.
And now they're going to use it. And now they're going to start drilling you with the questions. I mean, I've met some people who have, like I said, I've met people who have tons of certifications, but couldn't tell me how SQL injection works, or they tell me that they're, a really great web application hacker, but can't tell me what SQL injection is or how to use Burp Suite. And then I have people who have no certifications who I'm like, yo, back the truck up and let's get them paid.
Right.
So, it's all about skills. And like I said, that this field will expose you quick if you don't know your stuff. So like I said, in short, the certifications, it's a great feeling when you get it, when you achieve it. Like every time I got a certification, I was like, yeah. And then I take a couple of days off and I'm like, all right, what's next?
Right.
And then you have some that will really put you over the edge. Like I know I joked about it earlier, but the CISSP, that's great to have, as long as you apply the knowledge. It's almost like use it or lose it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get the certification just to say you have it. Get the certification because somehow it's going to help you, or you're going to do something that's going to build off of it. So like when I started out, I was like, I got to get this cert. I got to get that cert. I got to get that. And then when it was like, when I moved into, and which is fine in the IT side of things, but when you move over to cybersecurity, it's all about, do you know it, or you know it enough to pass a test, but what can you do right now to secure this company?
Right. And you got to be, and I think more so on the cybersecurity side than on the IT side, it's knowing how to use those skills, because it's not, more so than ever, it's never how it is in the book. Like whatever you sit down and read and study with this, but situations are never set up like that. Like you'll see certain things, so you got to be able to use those skills to be able to like think on the fly and like, okay, now I need to be able to get from A to B, but B's not really there. Maybe I can go over here. Like it's about that kind of mindset, and what I've heard a lot of people talk about, just kind of that hacker mindset. And most of the time, it's to you said earlier, it's tinkerers, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that kind of gets drawn to this field. And it's funny you talked about taking things apart, because I was the same way as a kid. Any toy that my mom got me, it was getting taken apart. Like I wanted to see how the inside of it worked. Like, what is it doing? What happens when it's doing this, right? And I would always be able to put it back together. Some of them I couldn't, but I was like, all right. But for the most part, I was always wanting to understand how something works, right? My curiosity came with computers. The first time I saw a computer, luckily for me, my stepdad was like, he would always build them. And the first time he took me to Fry's, bro, like, I was in heaven. I was like, wait a minute, what? We would walk down aisles, and it's just like, I was like, you can build this yourself? Yeah. And, I was hooked after then, like after that. And I think the biggest thing is I didn't have a fear of computers, because I wasn't afraid of breaking something. I was just like, oh, I'm just going to keep, like, I've seen how the inside of it works. So it's like, can't really break anything too bad. I was just reset the freaking thing and start over again. We'll be all right. And it's that type of mentality, I think, that really helps. And the biggest thing that I want people to get out of coming into the field is like the skill set. Once you develop the skill set and know what you know, like that gives you the kind of freedom and the power to kind of move and do what you need to do, right? And you're never beholden to a specific thing, because you know how to use those skills that you built. So I want to pivot one quick second, and I want to get back to like some of the burnout stuff, because I think it's, like I said at the top, like it's important. And you mentioned, especially for, being Black in this industry, person of color, period. But I'm gonna specifically talk about being Black because that's all I know. I'm not anything else. So I know like what it felt like at times, first getting started and literally being the only one in the room. Right. And for me, I think it's, I can't speak to anybody else, but I can talk about how I was raised. Right. Like it was always that concept of, I got to do things 2 and 3 times better already to even, get
twice as good to get half.
Right. Exactly. And so there's that kind of internal, there's that pressure that you already have. And then on top of, like we said, it's so fast moving on top of everything else, like you gotta, try and keep up. So.
Oh, my fault. My daughter just walked in.
You good?
Go ahead. All right. I'll deal with it later. Lock it, please.
Sorry, man.
Nah, it's all right. They just walk in like, look, you can keep that though, because this is real life. You can keep that.
Oh, just like, oh look, Daddy's doing something. So with that being said, man, kind of looking back on, having some hindsight on it, what are some things that you would do differently, right, to kind of help maybe prevent that?
Well, you're saying, oh, you mean as far as the mindset of doing twice to get half?
No, not that, but just find like looking back on some things that you would do to help, like sometimes you can't prevent burnout, but you know what I'm saying, to kind of be more aware of it.
Knowing your worth, knowing your worth, right? I think a lot of the reason why, again, going back to that point of making, you always got to feel like you got to do twice as much as the next man, or you got to outshine mediocre Matt just to get half of the recognition. After a while, you start wondering, what does the recognition really get you? Right. Again, you have the certifications, but you applied yourself, so you have the skill set. So your skills will speak for itself. If not with that company that you're at, someone will appreciate it, or until they don't, and then it's time to move on.
Right.
One of the lessons that I was taught early on was there's no loyalty in tech. I mean, if you look at tech alone, stuff is outdated and obsolete on average every 18 months.
Right.
So I take that and apply it with even with the job field. Like if you don't keep yourself relevant, or if the job doesn't do anything to keep you relevant with them, and they become irrelevant, then it's time to move on.
Right.
But again, that was a lesson that I had to learn after, tiring myself out and killing myself So again, I think it would be knowing your worth from day one, knowing that you're enough. And unfortunately, because there aren't enough of us in that field to kind of, fix each other's crowns or lift each other up, because again, a lot of us, if we're in the same room, it's almost like speaking without speaking, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like what's known doesn't need to be said. Like you've seen it. You've been in an office and you might see someone who look like you, and you might do the right. And
Yeah.
sometimes y'all be in a group conversation and something gets said or something get done, and you immediately gravitate and look over, and the other person is looking back at you, and y'all already know, um and unfortunately, because there aren't enough of us in the office, people can't relate. So you have to be strong in yourself and know your worth, and always bet on yourself. Like, again, if you follow me on Twitter, if you notice most of my hashtags, I always say always bet on yourself,
Right.
because you're going to be your biggest fan, or you're going to be sometimes betting on yourself or believing in yourself is going to be the only person who believes in you sometimes.
Yeah.
Not to bash family and friends, but sometimes if they're not in this tech field, they can't relate. They don't understand.
Right.
So knowing your worth definitely goes a long way, because if you don't know your worth, then you're allowing someone else to tell you what you're worth.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I don't know if it's history or whatever, but a lot of people don't think we're worth what we don't know
Right.
we're worth. So that definitely plays a role in it. Also, again, we were all raised, you got to work twice as hard to get half. I agree and disagree with that now. So I agree, like, coming up, you got to make a name for yourself. But
Yeah.
once you know you're firmly in a position where now you got your foot in the door, we're still fighting to get a seat at the table, but you got your foot in the door. Pump your brakes a little bit.
Right.
Now, I'm not telling you to, go ball out of control and go on vacation for a lengthy period of time or take a sabbatical or whatever. But one of the things that I had to learn, and again, I had to learn it through several stages of burnout, is, take some time. Even if it's a couple hours a day, take some time out, do something else, step away from the keyboard. And it's harder now because of COVID, because now a lot of us are working from home.
Right.
But, what movie was it? It was a Jet Li movie where he had moved. Basically, he was in the old country. After he was exiled, he was in the old country, and they're all working in the farm, and the breeze came, and everybody stopped and just stretched themselves out, closed their eyes, and took it in, right? And he didn't understand. He was like, I'm gonna keep planting these plants. And it wasn't until he was there for a little while where it was like, no, you have to appreciate those moments. And that's what I equate it to. Like, every once in a while, go outside, look at the sun or feel the breeze, close your eyes, and just be in that moment.
Right.
It does, like, whatever problem you're dealing with, tech related or whatever, it'll be there when you come back. But you gotta learn how to appreciate that. Otherwise, you're gonna burn yourself out. And like I said, the company don't care if you put in the extra time.
Right.
If you die today, or if you die tomorrow, they're gonna post your job before lunch. Before they send out the email blast that says, oh yeah, by the way, Davin died.
Right.
They're going to put up and say, hey, we're looking for a pen tester. Put this, please, HR, send this out. We're looking for a pen tester. Then they're going to go, what happened to Davin? Oh yeah, by the way, he died last night. So,
Yeah.
So you got to care about yourself, because if not, who will?
And it's very much, I think we hear it, if you're a sports fan, you follow your athletes and you hear it all the time, it's a business. And, one of the things that I think gets lost is that, this is where we work. It isn't a business. And to your point about knowing your worth, I think part of that comes with understanding that companies pay a position and not a person,
Mhm.
right? So, it's mixed. It's not black or white. It's kind of gray. So there's easy ways to get attached to that. But when you realize, number one, that you're confident in knowing your worth and what you do, and realizing that the company is going to look at a position and say, this is what we're paying this position. They look for position. They look for value, right? And so those are the two things. If that position they feel is providing this amount of value, then that's what's going to pay. And so, but it's often hard to separate yourself from like, well, I'm doing all this, I'm doing this, and they gonna pay me. They don't. It's like, again, that is not your value. That's how they're valuing at that position, right? And and those are things that I you know I learned that later on in life as well. I think for me, starting off, I started out in the consulting world, right? So my most of my career in the beginning was doing consulting. So I never my 9 to 5 was always different, right? Because I was always coming in. It's like, all right, this is the contract, that's what I got to do, billing hours, stuff like that, whatever. So I was so used to looking at hourly rates and things of that nature, and going over to whatever contract's gonna pay me the most work. I came up in government contracting, so to me it was like, okay, company A gonna pay me $50 to push this rock up the hill, but company B gonna pay me $75 to push this same rock up that same hill.
Mhm.
I'm about to go take the 75,
Oh yeah.
right? And so I kind of came up that way, not really having that loyalty of staying with the company. I was like, wherever the contract is where I will be at, because
Right.
the work is the work. And so I think later I did that for like the first 10 years of my career. Then I moved to kind of like the typical 9 to 5, working for a tech company, work for vendors, stuff like that, or whatever. And I kind of saw the difference. So it is definitely one of those things that I tell people, like, understand that this is a business and how it works, right? You get caught up in, a lot of companies are about culture, and I'm not knocking it. I think it's great. You want to have a company that's a great culture. And so you create this sense of belonging inside or whatever. And that is all good to have, but you have to have that separation of understanding that at the end of the day, to your point, it's a business. Something happened. They need to replace that position,
Yep.
right? No matter how much they like you, love you, whatever,
Yep.
that position has to be filled, right? So, and that can be, I think that can probably be a little off-putting to some people coming into this area, but I think if you just come in understanding what it is, eyes wide open, then you just learn how to navigate it. So, with that, what I would say, like, what would you, having gone through this, know what you know right now, like, um, has it like brought down? Do you still love cybersecurity? Right? Has it tainted any of your love for cybersecurity, or have you just kind of matured it and kind of grown with it a little?
Um. So cybersecurity in itself is just a love-hate relationship, right? Because it is. One minute you love what you're doing, and then the next minute you're like, I don't know if kids watch this show, but I tell my wife all the time, like, I'm like, listen, I need to double up on my workouts because I need to get my stripper body back. I don't know if I can keep doing this. No, for real. Yeah, it's, but like I said, it took me taking a break to realize, like I said, no, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that tinkering side of things. I tell everybody, when you become really good at cybersecurity, it's almost like you have this. It's almost like you're this crazy part of your brain, right? Because now, and you've reached that, you've unlocked that crazy part of your brain when you're walking around and you see certain things, and immediately you're like, how would I get into that? How would I do this? How would I do that? I remember one time we were at a hotel, and I walked into the hotel, and the card swiping machine displayed the IP address, and I was like, oh. At a car dealership, they're like, oh, we have open Wi-Fi, and I was like, oh. Because that itch is really, I mean, shoot, we went to Disney World last year, and this was our first vacation in a long time because, again, I was so busy. And now I was like, nah, I gotta make time for us.
Right.
We went to Disney, and they gave us the armband. But then, as I'm noticing, and it's a cool experience because as you walk through the park, you start seeing your name pop up on certain attractions, or you start noticing this, or you see this, and I'm like, one, I'm like, that's a security risk. But two, how could I like, I'm like, everybody's in Disney like, oh, this, the fireworks, and I'm sitting there in my head going, I wonder if I can somehow sniff the traffic going from the armband. It's got to be talking to an API or something, you know. So that tells me that I love what I do.
Right.
I love what I do. I love the fact that it keep the challenge. It's a puzzle. It's taking something apart and whatever. Again, it's just some of it. It's some of the nonsense that comes with it, whether it's the gatekeeping or the tech bros, or you know, whether it's the office politics. Like, you know, if like I said, if it were up to me, and I hopefully no one is gonna steal an idea or something, but if someone's watching and they can help me do it, I'm all ears.
Right.
My goal is I want to be able to train people security from a professional side as well as at home, right? But what I really want to do is I want to bring up people, especially young Black and brown kids, and show them there's other options than selling dope or playing sports,
right,
or being a rapper. Like, I ain't got no golds in my mouth. I ain't kill nobody. I didn't, you know. But look, I'm doing just fine. I mean, I might not have the millions, but I'm doing just fine. My family is good. So I want to expose the youth and everybody coming up to that. But I want to build an environment where it's almost like an on-the-job training type thing, right?
Okay.
So I'm teaching you how to get in. I'm teaching you the skills, but then I'm taking you on an assessment, right? And I'm going to teach you real world, you know, how to conduct a pen test, how to write a report, you know, heck, if we get a physical pen testing job, how to try to get in, how are we going to break it, you know, again, showing them all these things and showing them that, look, and you can do this and get paid to do it. You don't have to worry about it. You ain't got to worry about what happens if I get caught. You know, you ain't got to worry about, you know, getting jammed up in some street nonsense.
Right.
The most you gonna get called is a nerd, and damn it,
look, man,
my bank account. You call me nerd, my bank account say my bills is paid, and I'm all set. So, you know, like that to me, that's my goal. If I could do something like that all day, I'd be fine, right? But yeah, I think that's where it starts to get a little murky, is when, you know, you start seeing some of the stuff. I mean, even on Twitter, seeing some of the nonsense that comes along in a field that's supposed to be all inclusive, right? It's supposed to be all about, no matter what your background is, we're all here for a common goal. And that's where it gets a little disheartening.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I had talked about it earlier. One of my first podcasts, I had a guest on, and we talked about how, you know, the funny thing is, you know, with the tech field in general, right? What we saw was kind of like, and I'm gonna show my age, but like a real life play out of, you know, the Revenge of the Nerd movies, right? So where, you know, being a nerd and being a geek, like for so long, it was this thing that was made fun of and all this stuff or whatever. But as, you know, technology started to take off, it was those same nerds and geeks, you know, that was running everything, that was doing everything, right? And it became this point to where it was how you could use that and take that to, you know, provide not only provide a great, you know, path for yourself, take care of yourself and your family, but like to be able to do like all sorts of things, right? Technology has led the innovation, you know, curve for the last 20 years, right? So, but with that, you had a bunch of people who were already, let's take race out of it for a little bit, but who were already marginalized because they felt like they were, you know, they were bullied, they were picked on, stuff like that. So they created this group of, you know, we'll all be nerds together, right? So it became very inclusive there. But then as it shifted and it became that, okay, well, now the nerds were the cool thing to do, or it was more accepted, we let the same thing that nerds had fought for seep in to where it's like, oh, but I'm a nerd, but are you a nerd? Right now it became like the Star Trek versus Star Wars bullshit, or the, oh, well, you know this. It's like, well, I mean, you're kind of a programmer, but not this or that or whatever. Like we start doing all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it's crazy to watch how that came about. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, so to your point, that is disheartening, but I still think that there's so much more that connects most of us because and I think you said it perfectly, because at the end of the day we all think like that, right? That we're walking around and looking at stuff and it's like, I remember walking on the plane and there was this it was two incidents on the plane. One, I was walking, there was like some little monitor and it had like Windows 95. First of all, I was like, why? I was like, why? And so I'm watching this error prompt come up and I'm looking at the lady behind me and she was like, I noticed you were staring at the computer. I was like, oh, no, I was just staring at the error codes. I was kind of shocked that it was, 95, but it was talking about it. It had a page fault. And I was like, so that's interesting. I was like, I wonder, why it's faulting out and where, like, what they're using this thing for and why, like, nobody's noticing that. And so the guy overheard me, goes, oh, yeah, we get that all the time. We just, we just click OK, go back. And if we need to restart it. I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, and the second one was I was sitting on the plane and the little entertainment system was booting up and one was having trouble. So it boots up. So it's a Linux prompt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts looking at the commands. It's looking for the drive to go find the volume that needs to be mounted to bring up all the media stuff, whatever. And it couldn't find it. And so I'm sitting here and I'm reading it, right? And it was stuck in this loop. So it kept like boot looping again. So every time it started to scroll up really fast, dude, I'm so into it now. I'm like, okay, wait, let me looking for this. So I'm sitting there writing it down, come back and the guy's like looking at me and the lady comes and goes, yeah, I'm really sorry. The entertainment system's not working. I was like, well, actually, I was like, I think I know what the problem is. And so I was like, whatever file this is, like it's trying to boot like this discman and it can't find it. I was like, so have you guys like switched anything out on like the system, or like I was like, I don't know enough about what you guys do with the systems, but I don't know if you like load this drive every time or whatever. Dude, when she's looking at me like what are you? I'm just like, no, it's just right. And again, I'm geeked out right now. So to me, it's all English. Everybody else, they're like, it's like your shirt. They're like, are you reading The Matrix right now? I'm just like, but that's like, at the end of the day, that's all of us, man. Like we everybody in this field, like we think that way, right? We look at stuff and our first thought is, how does it work? How can I take it apart? Or like, how could I do something with it? Right. I wonder if this, like I go to conferences, like, I wonder if this has a open API. So I'm like, oh, / user. Like, it's just, I just do it. I don't even think about it. I just find myself like, oh, look, hey, look, I can get that. And then I'm the guy that'll sit there and then like email them like, hey, so not sure if you know this, but here's all the stuff I was able to find. Yeah. And I'm not even like, I didn't go the straight cybersecurity and pen testing route, right? I went identity access management. I went more of the, the kind of like the IT systems, putting all that together, managing all the accounts, stuff like that or whatever. But to me, it's all, when I got into this field, it was like, I want to understand all of it so I understand why a tool works, right? So if I look at a toolbox, the analogy I always use, if I understand what a toolbox is meant for, then I know why there's a hammer in here, right? I know why there's a screwdriver. I know where there's screws. Yeah. If I just know the tool, then that's it. So if the first tool I ever picked up was a hammer, guess what I'm gonna use for everything? A hammer.
Yeah,
if I understand the toolbox, then I'm like, oh no, I don't need a hammer. I need this.
Yeah, now you Thor, you grab the hammer. That's it. But all the tools, Iron Man. See,
right?
Now I'm nerding out and geeking out right now. No, but I mean, and I'm the same way. I mean, I got a forensic certification, but I did the forensic side because I wanted to understand what someone would look at if they were hacked, right?
Right.
And I did that to make myself a better hacker, because now if I know what the forensic people are going to look for, right, now I know how to better cover my tracks.
Right.
And then from the forensic side, because again, that's the other part of the brain, is when I took the cyber forensics course, it was like, oh, this is awesome, because now the course I took, for the exam I had to take, it was actually like a practical exam where they had you do an investigation. So they gave you a CD or a DVD and told you, boot it up, and basically it was an image of someone's hard drive, and you had to figure out the information. And long story short, based on that, you would write up the report and submit it like you were going to submit it to the prosecutor. And it's cool because now it's almost like you're putting yourself in the mind frame of the person you're investigating.
Right.
So now it's like, not only am I figuring out how to break it, I'm figuring out how they broke it and what they were thinking.
Right.
And, and like I said, in doing that, I always do certain things like that because it comes full circle, and it's like knowing your tools, right? So not only do I know the tools, now I know what someone might do to try to break the tool, and what I need to do to stop that from happening.
Right.
And again, like I said, that to the uninitiated, they would look at that like, that's crazy. Right? Like, you want to what? No, that's a lot of work. But to me, I'm like, that's my video game addiction, right? like for real. Like when I started doing CTFs or vulnerable machines, it was like, I'm like, yo, I don't care. I'm good. I don't need to play Madden. I don't need to play 2K. I'm gonna get on this machine right here, and I'm gonna see if I can break it. Like that. Like for the longest, that was like my video games. But yeah, like I said, that's how you know you really like what you do and you're passionate about it. When it's like I said, you're walking around and you're like I mean, to the same thing I did. Like while I was, you went to get a car before. A lot of time passes and you're sitting there and you're bored. And like I said, I was sitting there and I had my laptop and I just plugged in my alpha adapter and was like, huh. Oh. By the time I was signing the lease information for the car, I was like, oh yeah, by the way, you might want to disable your SSID broadcast. You probably shouldn't let people know. And also, you shouldn't have something on it like employees only network. And last but not least, let's not use default passwords. They were like, what? Nothing. Just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I'll just send you my bill later. So.
If you run into a problem, just call me.
Right. So man, to wrap up, I end every podcast with the same question. It's a segment that I affectionately call the last sip, because usually they're supposed to have cocktails, but I do have one because I'm a slightly alcoholic. But that's neither here nor there. I can do that. I don't live by myself, but I don't have any kids. So, but no, we call this section the last sip. So we're gonna get to it right now.
Okay. I took a shot.
So I end every podcast with this question I ask all my guests, man. So, and I think you've kind of alluded on it a little bit, but when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be that, like I said, I want people, especially our people, to know that, again, there's literally ways out there other than, the stereotypical ways to, change your life around. Whether it's in tech, there's other ways to do it. And if I can do it, you can do it. And, again, you have to always bet on yourself. Like, I want to be the person who, if I was remembered for anything, is that, I did it, and I did it the right. It might have been unconventional, but I did it the right way.
Right.
And, like I said, it's coming up where we came up. It's real easy to to veer off, you know,
Yeah.
especially you get 13, 14 years old and you start seeing certain things. For me, it was like my parents splitting up and, you know, and you start gravitating to certain things. And like I said, the same woman who was my cheerleader and also my biggest fear was the one who kind of pulled me back in, because she kind of started to notice certain things. And she said, listen, nah,
Yeah.
bring your ass back this way, you know? And now it was like with my kids, it's like everything I do is for them. So I put myself in their position. Like there are certain things that I saw at 7, 8, 9 years old that I would never want my kids to have to see.
Right.
And because I picked up a laptop and learned a couple little funny lines or looking at something that looked like the Matrix, my kids may never have to. Well, my daughter's 13 and my son will be 11, God willing, you know, knock on wood.
Yeah.
They've already surpassed any expectations that were thought of for me coming up. So
what's up, man?
I just wanted, like I said, I wanted to, you know, we're moving into the world of technology, right?
Right.
I mean, people are walking around with devices that got more stuff in it than the spaceship that went to the moon.
Yep.
Take advantage of it. Like literally, like I tell my kids all the time, like, listen, y'all are sitting on, y'all playing around with something that can make you hundreds of thousands of dollars and don't even know it.
Right.
To me, it's almost like when we were kids growing up and, you know, you had your Ninja Turtles and you had your toys. And now at the age we're at now, you look back and you're going, that toy is worth how much now? How much is the original Voltron worth? What? And now you start kicking yourself because now you're thinking about the time you wanted to make it fly and you threw it out the window. Or you know, so that's what I tell my kids. I tell my kids, like, listen, you know, like my daughter's a better Python programmer than I am, and she doesn't like it. She did it because her friends did a girls who signed up for Girls Who Code.
Right.
They got together, a bunch of girls of color, and she just figured, okay, and coded and she's dope at it and doesn't want to do it. Right? My son, you know, and like I'll speak on them all day, but my son watches anime, which gives me an excuse to watch anime all over again. But now he likes to draw. And he likes to draw and he plays video games. So what do? I signed him up for esports.
There you go.
So now he's playing Fortnite with all the kids up here all the time, and he's going to tournaments and stuff at 10, 11 years old. Last year, I took him to a esports competition at one of the colleges. They're giving kids scholarships to play video games.
I know. I was born 10, 15 years too late, bro.
Yo,
I'm trying to tell you.
So when my son went to that esports tournament, I brought my mom my mother flew in. I brought her to the tournament and I said, remember all them years you told me video games wasn't gonna get me nowhere? You lied. but cool story though. So we're at this thing and the guy who voiced Balrog, Shao Kahn, I think he was one of the dragons from Dragon Ball GT, Bob Camp, he was there. And it was the day before my son's birthday. So I asked him if he can come over and wish my son happy birthday. And I still got the video. He walked up to my son, and I'm starting to record. He goes, flawless victory, right? My son's looking at him like stranger danger, but I'm looking at my son like, listen, that wasn't for you. That was for me. It's not about you right now, right? So he starts asking my son, you know, what do you like to do? And my son's like, I draw. And he's like, yeah, cool, kid. And now my son, that itch that we have,
Mm-hmm.
when you tell him he can't, it's like, oh, word. So he comes to me and goes, Dad, you have that picture of Minato, Naruto's dad. He's like, you have the picture of Minato I drew the other day? I'm like, yeah. He's like, can I see it? So I bring it up on my phone. He walked up to dude back and was like, bang. And he was like, you drew this? He's like, yes, sir. He's like, yes. He's like, yeah, I need you to come to this workshop I'm having. And he invited my son to go to learn about, you know, doing graphic arts, like on the computer. voice acting,
There
you
you
know.
go.
And again, these are all, like I said, and again, I attribute that to coming back full circle to being comfortable, knowing my worth, and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Because my son would have never been
Right.
able to be in that situation had I not sat there and decided, had my wife never sat there and said, stop falling off of ladders and do something you enjoy. So, yeah, my thing is just, whatever you're going to do, always bet on yourself, stick to it, do it the right way, and doors will open that you didn't even imagine. I mean,
Right.
hell, I like I said, a couple months ago, I said I was done. I was walking away. I took a break, came back, and here I am talking to you. So like I said, doors open when you least expect it. So
Right. That's what's up, man. Well, dude, man, I appreciate you taking the time, chat with me, man. This has been just so dope. I follow you on Twitter, so we'll keep chopping it up.
absolutely.
But I do want to give you a chance to, once again, let people know where they can follow you. Let people know what you, where your blog's at, and also where they can get some of that merch, because I know you got your shirts there, so people can join the. There you go, join up the pack. Let them know.
So, alphacybersecurity.tech. That is my blog site. I have everything on there from my personal struggles, whether I failed my OSCP exam, and that was the first time I really experienced what burnout and imposter syndrome was. But alphacybersecurity.tech is like I said, that's the blog. I have a YouTube channel. Just search Alpha Cybersecurity, because I don't have enough. Apparently, I don't have enough subscribers to get my own custom channel. I'm on Twitter, djax_alpha. Same thing on Instagram, djax_alpha. And then Facebook is also Alpha Cybersecurity. So just look for that. And the shirts and the merchandise, you can go to, is it T Fury? I don't even remember. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. But T Public, I'm sorry. I was looking at T Fury the other day. But yes, you can go on T Public and just search for Djax Alpha, and that's it.
There it is. All right, everybody. As always, thanks for tuning in. Until the next cocktail, to the next conversation. Y'all stay safe out there. Thanks for listening to Cocktails, Code, and Conversation. Of course, this episode is brought to you by the On the Corner Podcast Network. Check us out at onthecorner.us. Also, please like, rate, subscribe, follow on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, go ahead, subscribe. Click the button to get the notification anytime there's a new podcast coming out. Of course, there's also more great content coming as well. Please check out the C3 merchandise store. You can go to c3.onthecorner.us to check out all of our merch. You can get a nice shirt like this, and also your official C3 Squad member shirt. Just go ahead and sign up for the C3 Squad and check out our merch store. So with that, y'all know what it is. To the next cocktail, to the next conversation. Stay safe out there.